Let's get into that first story from the New York Post. Elon Musk fires Twitter lawyer James Baker over Hunter Biden story suppression. And the funny thing is, if you just read the headline, you're like, why is that news? Okay. Elon Musk fired Twitter general counsel. Okay, so it was just straight general counsel. Wow. In light of concerns about Baker's possible role in suppression of information important to the public dialogue, he was exited from Twitter today, Musk wrote on Twitter Tuesday. Musk added that he questioned Baker before his firing about the events surrounding the laptop suppression scandal, and that his explanation was unconvincing. Baker was previously general counsel for the FBI under former director James Comey and was a key figure in the Bureau's investigation into false claims of collusion between Russia and Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Full stop. The day, I believe it was the day, Donald Trump was inaugurated, a lawyer tweets, "We are going to impeach you." That lawyer later went on to represent a client whose name we won't say, and then he was part of the impeachment against Donald Trump. There have been people actively working against the president and the American people since 2016. How this man comes to leave in disgrace the FBI and then become general counsel for Twitter is very, very interesting, especially when you take a look at some of this other information. Let me see if I can pull this up. We have Josh Hawley there. Where do we have it? Is it there we go. America First Legal. Following the Twitter files, AFL has obtained new documents uncovering a secret Twitter portal U.S. government officials used to censor dissenting COVID-19 views and violate the First Amendment. So this is something more than just, in my opinion, the FBI advising Twitter, giving a humble warning to Mark Zuckerberg. No, they had direct access, and they had some of their loyalists inside the company. Matt Taibbi writes on Twitter, "On Friday, the first installment of the Twitter files was published here. We expected to publish more over the weekend. Many wondered why there was a delay. We can now tell you part of the reason why. On Tuesday, Twitter Deputy General Counsel," okay, so it was Deputy, "Jim Baker was fired. Among the reasons, vetting the first batch of Twitter files without knowledge of new management. The process for producing the Twitter files involved delivery of two journalists, Barry Weiss and me, via a lawyer close to new management. However, after the initial batch, things became complicated. Over the weekend, while we both dealt with obstacles to new searches, it was Barry Weiss who discovered that the person in charge of releasing the file was someone named Jim. When she called to ask Jim's last name, the answer came back, Jim Baker. My jaw hit the floor," says Weiss. Look at this. The first batch of files both reporters received was marked Spectra Baker emails. Baker is a controversial figure. He has been something of a zealot of FBI controversies dating back to 2016, from the Steele dossier to the Alpha server mess. He resigned in 2018 after an investigation into leaks to the press. The news that Baker was reviewing the Twitter files surprised everyone involved, to say the least. New Twitter chief Elon Musk acted quickly to exit Baker Tuesday. Reporters resumed searches through Twitter files materials, a lot of it. Today, the next installment of the Twitter files will appear at Barry Weiss. Stay tuned. So, how you guys doing?
Yeah, I actually talked about this guy yesterday, and I brought up Jonathan Turley's article on him, and he called him the Kevin Bacon of the Russian collusion scandal. The story here is just absolutely bewildering, especially when you look into the greater details. This guy was fired from the FBI for leaking information on the Trump administration. This guy was behind a lot of the major warrants that were spying on the Donald Trump campaign. This guy then was working with Vijaya Gotti one-on-one when it came to censoring people in our political landscape, predominant people who supported the Trump administration. This guy's connected to the Clintons. He's connected to James Comey. He's connected to almost virtually everyone in the political sphere. And Elon Musk didn't even know he was working at Twitter deciding what kind of documents Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi were getting. What?
That's crazy.
How does that make sense? It doesn't. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely not. And you know what? This is just another great example, too, of just how far the tentacles of our government stretch in every aspect of our reality and of our truth. I mean, going into, again, big tech, which is one of the areas and places where people cast their votes, where they gather their information, where their entire reality is dictated, essentially. You have the FBI here dictating reality, dictating truth, and dictating what we're allowed to see. So, you know, even it's like our own government, right? We instill somebody as president who we think is going to change things, but then they have to go through all of these other layers of corruption. And that's what we're seeing right now with Twitter and all the other, people involved with even suppressing the Twitter files.
it doesn't surprise me that there was some deep state act. And when I say deep state, I mean like administrative state. You know, I know very well that people will leave the government. You mentioned this earlier, Tim, and then go work at Monsanto, or they'll be like a Monsanto chief and then they'll come work at the government, or they'll be like, it's just this revolving door of government corporate collusion. This is kind of the first time I've seen it in social media.
Yeah. Well, there's a saying, once you're CIA, you're always CIA. To think that the Federal Bureau of Investigations doesn't have a similar role in our private sector is foolish. So I think it's fair to say that the FBI has infiltrated many big tech social media companies, whether officially or unofficially, and a lot of the times it is them calling the shots here. And prove me wrong, because there's no other way to see this from the plethora of evidence that has been provided to us.
Yeah, I kind of just don't think that the country exists anymore.
I saw you tweet that earlier too. What do you mean by that?
I mean that the idea of the United States is now this shell. You know, you can see the flag, but even the embassies are flying different flags in some places. Not like flying on the flagpole, but they're putting up like the pride flag and stuff like that. You go to a major city, the attitude, the belief structure is so dramatically different from people outside of cities. It's like it's a clear distinction here. Then you get to the courts. Okay, it's illegal. We call it illegal immigration for a reason. Okay, well, a whole bunch of states just completely ignore that law, right? California, for instance, they call it a sanctuary state. You've got places like I think New York and San Francisco were doing this, upstate New York, allowing non-citizens to vote. Yeah. Now that these court cases are going through. Look, the southern border is completely porous. Non-citizens are voting. What does that even mean? How is it a vote if people who don't live here can change the way we have to live? Then you have all of the crime. Then you have this. Two things with this. That's why I say the U.S. doesn't exist anymore. You know, I was talking about this earlier with some friends. They're like, don't you think? But this stuff's always been happening. And I'm like, yeah, you know, back in the day of J. Edgar Hoover when he's digging up dirt on presidential candidates and stuff. But you see, the FBI, they were everywhere. There was like some unified authoritarian control over this country. Now, not only can we see them doing it, but we see them doing it. You know what I mean? Like, we know they do it, and now we're watching them do it, meaning their control has been completely subverted. So there's illicit activity going on from the federal government to try and control things, which they're failing to control, and then they're being exposed. So not only is there no seemingly functional law enforcement, if you look at what happened with Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you look at what happens with us, if you look at what's happening with police across the country and security in Philadelphia, like you were mentioning, these armed guards outside, the cops can't do anything. The FBI can't do anything. Swattings are happening like crazy to members of Congress. And now we're just sitting back, literally watching in real time the FBI fail to pull off an infiltration.
Well,
wow.
And I think what we're seeing too, right, in the modern days, if you really take a step back and look at it, is that all of our intelligence agencies have been weaponized against the American people. And then you go to the border, like you talked about, Tim. I've been to the border myself, and I've watched the flood of illegal immigration that happens every single day. I've talked to Border Patrol who say, we're essentially Uber for the illegal immigrants at this point. There's no stop to the flow there. We're essentially aiding and abetting human trafficking at our border. We're aiding and abetting the cartel at this point. The Biden administration might as well be putting money directly in their pockets because they are. So again, you know, the border's an issue, the crime's an issue. And then on top of all of that, our own intelligence agencies are now attacking and, targeting the American citizens. So I completely agree with your sentiment that the United States no longer exists. And it was funny too, because so many on the left were saying, oh my gosh, Donald Trump called to abolish the Constitution. This is so horrific. I can't believe he would say something like that. And it's like, hold on. You guys impede on our First Amendment rights and our Second Amendment rights every single day. We just had Joe Biden the other week saying we need to ban assault weapons. Every single day you have the Democrats trying to take away our Second Amendment right, our ability to defend ourselves, to keep us from becoming New Zealand, China, or Australia. And you're mad because Donald Trump said something about abolishing the Constitution on Truth Social? Give me a break.
He didn't even say that. He's like, some rules, including some of those in the Constitution, may have to be suspended or terminated. I think terminated is what he said. So he didn't come out and say, like, terminate the entire Constitution. He was like, some of these rules have to be terminated. Okay, not a fan of when Abraham Lincoln did it. But Abraham Lincoln did it too. Just saying.
I get the vibe that the internet has changed the way nations govern themselves so drastically. This internet video and things like that now, like the cohesion of the myth of what we are used to be through ABC, NBC, CBS, and they were told to you, and that was the administrative state. Now now everyone, it's madness. It's madness. And nations, I think, rightfully so, are dissipating. Like the idea that the United States ends at that drawn out line is ridiculous now. Those people on the other side, like the cartels you mentioned, are just as much a part of this system as I am, whether I want it to be or not. We're all in this together. So it's faltering. I don't think that it means that the American ideals are disappearing. I think that the Constitution and the ideas that it represents are fantastic and could be globally adopted. You see revolution in China.
Dude, with Ian, the fact that our own press secretary has the audacity to get up in front of the American people every single day and lie to us bold-faced. This administration tried to change the definition of recession as we were actively going through it. This entire administration tries to pretend that the economy isn't failing, that inflation isn't at a 40-year high. The fact that our own government is not fearful of the American people and they're willing to lie to us so bold-faced, it really pisses me off. And I think it goes to show that, we don't have the country that we once had. Jack Posobiec always loves to tweet that out, that the America that we once knew no longer exists. And I completely agree with that sentiment, because think about the fact, too, that we're raising an entire generation that thinks that this type of government is normal, that changing the definition of things is normal. I was thinking about the fact that TSA, right? I thought that was a normal thing. I wasn't aware that taking off your shoes, getting frisked by the TSA was not a normal part of modern day society. Think about the fact that Gen Z is going to think that face masks, that government overreach, that the government spying on you, that the government lying to you and redefining our modern day language is just how society has always run.
I'll make a point to the country no longer existing too. There are a lot of people that still believe in the United States. And they're holding to this ideal and this vision. I respect that. I like what America represents. I like the Constitution. But come on, take a look at the Constitution. Take a look at the Bill of Rights. Is the federal government abiding by the Bill of Rights? Let's go through it. The First Amendment. What did we just learn? Okay, well, the FBI, the DHS, DNI are colluding with big tech platforms to censor legitimate legal speech. Major political parties like the DNC, which includes public officials, are actively suppressing speech, and we can see it's happening in California. We can see it from the Missouri lawsuit. That's the First Amendment just gone. Yeah. Second Amendment, I don't even got to talk about that. Come on. Democrats are trying to ban semi-automatic weapons. Third Amendment, I got you there, baby. During COVID, they were mandating that you couldn't evict people, and that meant, and this is hilarious, by the way, that active duty soldiers, military personnel, who are currently living as tenants in property, they could not be evicted. And I got to say that literally violates the Third Amendment. The Third Amendment, of course, most people don't realize is the government can't quarter soldiers in your home. So the argument was actually made. Fourth Amendment? Oh, come on. The Fourth, has that one existed for a long time? NSA lying to Congress, they bulk spying, all of that stuff, tapping the deep sea cables. Come on, those are the first four that are gone. How about the Fifth Amendment? Oh boy. You want to go through this one? January 6th defendants.
Yep.
How long have they been locked up without charge, without trials, in solitary confinement? I get it. The list goes on. There's no right to confront your accuser. There's no speedy trial. Let's talk about the 9th and 10th Amendment. Oh boy, do we got to go there? Look, you've got the fracturing across the board of the Constitution. It's just non-existent. Sorry to say.
When you brought up Trump, I was going to make a joke. I was like, "We have a Constitution here," but you, but you made the point a lot more clearer by going through each of the amendments here. And
which one's the 7th? Is that the one about suing someone for $20, or is that which one is that one?
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up right now. But there is something to say about rogue intelligence states that have pretty much just destroyed conversations, destroyed speech, destroyed people's ability to just have a fair political system. What's happening right now is not fair. What's happening right now is not just. It's one party consolidating enough power and authority for themselves to do whatever they want, trying to create a Chinese-style totalitarian society where they try to disarm you, put you on a social credit score as you're going to be living through a central bank digital currency, asking for permission just to do anything in your life. As, of course, the richest, most powerful people are only setting policies that are making them more richer and more powerful than ever. The last few years, we have seen the largest transfer of wealth in, I think, recorded human history. That is something worth noting when it comes to robbing people of any kind of ability, not only to fight back, but to live a life. That ability has been stripped away from a lot of decent, hardworking Americans that could no longer make ends meet. meat could no longer act by a society that is acting by fair rules, because it's not. Everywhere you go, there is some kind of nonsense, that is some kind of woke policy, there's some kind of bullcrap out there that just robs you of a good, fair, and honest living.
Luke, see, and I always make the argument as well, because we're constantly talking against the World Economic Forum, George Soros, a lot of these like you'll own nothing and be happy policies, right? But we're essentially already living through that. Do we truly own anything? If you pay off your house, do you truly own your house? Or are you still paying property taxes to the government? Do you truly have a constitution? Do you truly have freedom of the press in the United States of America? Or is big tech going to, like the New York Post story with Hunter Biden, kind of censor and suppress what you're really allowed to say ahead of a important election? I'm not sure. So, we have to ask these very important questions, because people are consistently warning against these things, warning against this totalitarian state, the authoritarian government. But I, for one, think that we're essentially already living through it, and we essentially have this illusion that we're not. But I don't think we're really free in the United States, unfortunately, anymore.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.